Hey guys, welcome back to Kory's Rides. On today's episode, we are going to put a bung in the exhaust.
So there are a couple things to think about when you install this bung. Now, as you can see here, it needs to be a minimum of 10 degrees, and that's so that water doesn't build up in the sensor. Another thing is you have to get a perfect seal around the bung to the exhaust pipe, otherwise this isn't going to work. Now, on the pipe here, you see this slip joint where it's welded together. In front of this, from the engine to here, that's all double wall pipe, meaning a pipe inside a pipe. We do not want to put it there because you won't get a good weld around it, and it'll not be as strong. We want to put it on the back side of this slip joint because this is single wall pipe. So I've just kind of screwed this on loosely, and I'm going to kind of find a place to put it. I'm going to put it nearly vertical because I've got the room. There's no reason not to put it that way. Then the wires all go up and out of the way. I can still get to my clutch adjustment if I put it here. You know, I got to kind of work around it, or not my clutch adjustment, sorry. Well, yeah, the clutch adjustment and the throttle adjustment back there. So I think that's a good looking spot for it. And then you just need to be careful not to get it too close to this, and be careful when you weld so you don't have this angled out, otherwise you'll end up having to notch your exhaust guard. Now this is a factory head pipe. Aftermarket ones, it's probably even easier because a lot of them don't have a heat shield. But then the concern with an aftermarket pipe is that this is a steel bung. Whoops, that's a steel bung. And most aftermarket systems are stainless steel, and it's fine to weld those together, but it's a little more difficult. The factory pipe is steel. It'll weld together nice and easy. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of place this where I want it, and then I'm going to take a silver Sharpie because it shows up better and kind of mark the center point of where that sensor is, and then we'll go ahead and take the exhaust off. As you can see, that's the spot I chose, and then I just place the center of the sensor on it. Kind of just check and make sure that looks like it's going to clear everything, like the wire's going to go up there nice. And then we'll go ahead and remove the exhaust system. Now I would suggest leaving this on just for now to help you with placement and everything. Use a 12mm socket to take both of these off on the head pipe flange, and then it's also a 12mm to take this one loose. And then you can simply wiggle the pipe out. Got the head pipe loose, it comes right out. One item you're going to want to replace when you do this is the crush gasket for your exhaust header. This is what the one looks like that I took out, and this is what a new one looks like. So there's quite a difference. That's something you're going to want to replace when you do this. Now, the Honda manual also suggests that you replace the one going into the muffler. That's a soft one. I've reused that several times and it seems okay, but there's another gasket in there. If you're real picky, you'll want to replace that too. Since there's a high possibility of damaging the pipe if it's clamped, I would suggest doing this on a rug or on the ground. And how I'm going to start this is I'm going to use my center point tool, or center punch tool, to make a point here that we can start the drill bit on. Okay, with that done, what I'm going to do is chuck up this tool called a step bit into my drill, and then we're going to start drilling a hole in here. Now, it's kind of important to get your angle correct at this point, but it's not super critical because you can always drill it just a little bit bigger and then change the angle of your bung. Okay, I'm going to stop there, and then I'm going to check to see how big that hole actually needs to be, which is something I probably should have done initially.
Silly, Dad.
Yeah, I know.
What does it say, Dad?
Drill 3/4 to 7/8 inch hole in exhaust and deburr edges.
Okay.
So, I've got a ways to go yet. That's probably pretty close. Now that bung will sit over that hole, just like that, and we can deburr the edges, and then we can TIG weld that on. I've got it just tacked on there right now, and what I'm going to do is put it back on the bike and make sure the angle and everything is right. Now, if you don't have a welder, this is not expensive to have a shop do. I can't imagine this being much more than $20 or $30 for any welder anywhere to do. You just might want to have them tack it on, try it on your bike, and then bring it back to have it finish welded. So let's put it on the bike and see how it looks. Now with the sensor just kind of stuck in there, it looks good. Looks like we've got good wire routing, good angle, like I'm not going to hit my leg on it. You know, the top of this is just inside this frame piece here. So that looks good. So now what we'll do is use an Allen wrench to take this guard off, and then I'll go ahead and weld that in. One thing you're going to want to do when you weld this is to get an old junk oxygen sensor, or spend a couple dollars on a bolt from the hardware store to put in here to protect the threads. When you weld it, if you get it too hot, it might melt the threads or kind of frost them up. You're also going to want to run a tap through it once you're done, and the thread size is, it's a metric 18 by 1.5, so you might want to get yourself a tap to run through there, just in case you didn't get it perfectly aligned and there's a bit of an overlap with the hole you made in your pipe, or if the heat distorts the threads a little bit. Once you have it welded on, this is now also a very good time to just take a wire brush or sandpaper, get rid of the rust, and repaint your pipe. You're going to want to make sure not to get a paint on this face or in the threads or on this portion of the tailpipe. So leave that bolt or that old oxygen sensor in here after you've tapped out the threads. Make sure they're clean, and then we can go ahead and paint this and make it look a little better and prevent the rust from spreading. Now, even if you don't want to do the whole thing with new paint, I would suggest at least doing the bung. And regular engine enamel is not enough. You need to get actual exhaust rated paint to do this. If you think you can just get the $2 touch and tone or whatever from the hardware store, that absolutely won't work. So make sure it's rated for the heat. I would suggest wiping it down with acetone or some kind of cleaner before you do this, and then I'm going to go ahead and paint this, and we'll let that dry and install it. Now with the exhaust all painted and installed and tightened up, we can put our oxygen sensor in. Now this one, right out of the box, had some anti-seize compound on it. If yours doesn't, you might want to put that on there so you can take this back out in the future. So we can just go ahead, screw it into here, and just snug it up real nice. It does have a little crush washer, and I don't know a torque spec on this. I just do it by feel and go till I think it's nice and snug. And there is our finished product. Wires all tucked up, zip tied out of the way. Nice clean installation, nice new paint on the pipe. And with a lot of high temperature paint, you actually have to run the engine to cure it. So before we start this whole thing up, since it's all installed, I'll go over what the instructions say, and that will be in our next episode.